Happy Thursday. Welcome into a live edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Wes Reynolds. We are down the home stretch here, Major League Baseball regular season. We have a few live games going on right now. Count them 4, all with playoff implications and some action on the base path. So we'll get you some updates momentarily. We'll also look ahead at some interesting games tonight on this reduced Thursday card. How are you, Wes?
I'm well, Doug. How are you?
I'm good, man. Obviously, it's an exciting time of year for football alive and well. We got WNBA playoffs. I know you've been on both shows throughout the week, ready to fire. But there's some interesting games. Let's get into it because playoff implications across the board. Mets fading in the wild card, but they're hanging on. Same for the Padres, who've had their door opened to get in the NL West, but they can't seem to close that gap. They're 2 back of the Dodgers. It is 1-1 right now. Bottom third in Queens. Mets have the leadoff runner on. Rays get a 3 spot and now lead 3-0, headed to the bottom of the third in Tampa as they host the Blue Jays. So that game's interesting for a variety of reasons. Rays were left for dead in a lot of ways, but they've, they ended the Blue Jays win streak and they're showing signs of life. Tarek Skubal, 3 shutout innings so far for he's almost through. Yes, 3 shutout innings. So the Tigers lead 1-0 at home against Cleveland. Tigers are feeling the heat. Cleveland going for the sweep today. So that's a big game in the American League Central in a lot of ways. That lead has been trimmed to 4.5 games. Cleveland has won 6 straight. So we can't write the Tigers in pen just yet for the division lead. Anything jump out to you in terms of a live wager, Wes?
Yeah, just looking through this a little bit. Nothing yet for live, even though I do have a couple pregame bets in this very early slate. I did use Tanner Bybee over 17.5 outs just because the bullpen for the Guardians in that 6-game winning streak, including 2 here in Detroit, they've used that bullpen a ton. So I thought Bybee maybe was going to get a little bit of a leash, but still not out of the third yet. And at 57 pitches, that's a lot of pitches. And he had, I think, 22 in the first inning. So I don't know if we're going to get there for 6 full innings with Tanner Bybee. And also have the A's at about plus 135 in the game against Boston today. They got 3 in the first. Boston responds with 1 in the bottom. Boston, to me, just they have not been able to really, I think, pull away. They're in the wild card spot. Them in Seattle are 83 and 69. But can Cleveland catch them, basically, is what it's going to be, because it feels like Kansas City, Tampa Bay, they've obviously fallen out, and Texas is fallen on some hard times too. So Boston may be able to hang on, but they have not looked impressive in this series against Oakland, despite the fact that it's 1-1.
Yeah. The Red Sox, Chris Massaro and I were on the show yesterday. All signs pointed to them taking care of business, right? Giolito pitching at home. But it was like minus $1.65, and A's had a chance to really win the game and break a game open with the bases loaded. Didn't get there. Red Sox did walk it off in the bottom of the 9th, I believe. I don't think it was a ghost runner that scored. So they got the win, which was all that mattered. But now, like you mentioned, A's jump on them 3-1. That line right now is Athletics minus $2, and on the run line minus 1.5, minus 113. I know the Boston bats have been quiet, but that's not something I necessarily want to get involved with. So nothing for me there. Chris Bassett gives up a 3 spot to the Rays, as I mentioned, in the second inning. So we're bottom 3, Tampa up 3-0 in batting over Toronto. Now this Blue Jays team is in comfortable control of the AL East, but you never know. They lead by 4 games over the Yanks, who certainly wish they could play the Twins every game, but that's not the case after they manhandled them again yesterday. So the Yanks are knocking on the doorstep, at least 4 back. If this holds true, I mean, that's a big game for New York, who's in Baltimore, opening up a 4-game set, that game on national television. We'll get to that game in a little bit, but that could certainly get interesting if this score holds up. Now, the Rays aren't exactly world beaters, but they're not pushovers either. That live line right now, minus 910 on the money line, I would look at the Blue Jays plus 460, if anything. I mean, some of these games, we see crazy comebacks. Uh, Obviously, there's no reason to lay 9-10. You're not going to make money doing that, even in a parlay. But does plus 460 interest you with that Toronto lineup?
Well, that would be the way I would go if I were to get involved. Shane Baz at times can have that one bad inning where it looks like he's kind of on cruise control, and then all of a sudden, walks a guy, gives up a hit, and then all of a sudden you're looking at a 25, 30 pitch inning. So that's certainly, I think, a little bit of a cause for concern for Tampa. So it'd be Toronto or nothing.
All right, one game that's got some developments is in Queens, as I mentioned. It's 1-1 New York Mets and Padres. However, the Metropolitans, bottom third, nobody out, second and third. So a big spot. They just got sack fly, I believe it is. So the Mets take the lead 2-1. And that is, obviously a big game. Tong's on the bump for New York. Vasquez for San Diego, who finally got in the win column yesterday behind Pivetta. This is a rubber game of the series. Implications galore for both teams in the playoff hunt. So the Mets go up 2-1. Runner on third, one out. Alonso, the polar bear at the dish, who went yard in the first inning for the fourth straight game, he went yard. So big homer for there. I feel like this game could break open. It's 9.5 is the live total, under minus 130. Obviously, I like the over a little bit, but the Padres lineup just so unreliable, even though Machado had the big hit yesterday.
Well, this is going to probably be a bullpen game anyway, because Randy Vasquez is not a guy that really gives them. He's a pitch contact guy, even though he does have 3 strikeouts a day. That's very high for him through 3 innings, or at least not yet through close to 3 innings. But he's a guy that doesn't really go deep as a starter for the Padres. So this is a guy that's like, hey, give us 5 good innings. That's what Mike Shield, I think, is trying to do, and then turn it over to that bullpen. So some of these starters, when these spots are getting down to the nitty gritty in terms of the wild card, and you have to look at. I think the best value, more so than like strikeouts, is like recorded outs, because it's all about how the bullpen usage is going to be. That was my thought on like Tanner Bybee, what we were talking about with the Guardians and the Tigers just a moment ago. Some of these guys are going to get leashes, and some of these guys, it's like, okay, you're going to go 2 times through the order and you're done. And you're going to get pulled. Like Brandon Woodruff was a perfect example last night, where I got lucky on a recorded outs under 17.5. He was cruising. Like he had low 70 pitches through 5 innings, and the Brewers pulled him. So you're going to get that. It's like, okay, this is the top of the order, 3rd time through the order. You're going to be out. So some guys are going to get leashes and some guys aren't going to get trusted.
All right, good stuff. And we'll come back to these games. So it sounds like nothing on a live line for you or I right now. Maybe a little nibble of Toronto plus the big price, but that's about it. So that would be a fun bet, plus 460 on the comeback. Just a reminder, if you like what you hear on our shows, sign up for our newsletter, get exclusive tips and the free Insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. Let's check out some other games, because we do have some interesting games coming up, and that includes one starting right now. I should have got to that, but live wagering, you can always get it after the first pitch. Royals hosting the Mariners. Seattle's 10-game win streak finally comes to an end. KC rallied back, and then Houston wins. So now the Astros are in first place, and Seattle finds itself a half game back in that American League West. So Mariners wrapping up the series in Kansas City. Luis Castillo on the bump for the M's. Stephen Kolek going for the Royals. Mariners road chalk minus 124. Now, Wes, KC showed me something yesterday with rallying back. They're not just left for dead, but I like the Mariners here. If anything, I'm going to pass, not get involved. I know typically when these win streaks end, it's sort of it's not just one game, but I think the M's are locked in and not going to just treat it like a regular season win streak in the middle of the year. I think the M's probably have some value here behind Castillo.
Yeah, no bet for me either. I would certainly lean Seattle. Kansas City, by the way, did have to go pretty deep into the bullpen. Cole Reagans, who had been out for a long time with the injury, was really their ace, I think, going forward. Only goes 3 2/3. and he was going to be on a pitch count anyway. So they had to use a lot of their bullpen just to get by last night. Kansas City now at 500. They are 7 out of the wild card, so they're out of it. Essentially, they were kind of hanging around a little bit for a while, them and Tampa and Texas. And now it seems like those teams, maybe Texas has one little run left in it, but those other teams are out. So now you wonder how Kansas City is going to approach this. They're 76 and 76. So certainly now the goals change, right? It's like, okay, let's get a winning season. So I don't think that they're going to necessarily totally mail it in here, but I couldn't get involved with, Kolek is one of those guys they like to only have go 2 times through the order before they pull him, but he's been locked in for a couple starts and is gone into the 6th. And, that's going to be bad if you're betting recorded under out. So lean Seattle on the money line, but ultimately left it alone.
All right, good breakdown there and good context with Kolek on the bump. Just a reminder, there's a crazy WNBA playoff action going on. So top of the hour, make sure you join us for Betting Weekly Fast Break. There's 2 playoff games to break down. A lot of good opportunities there. Don't just focus on football and even baseball. There are opportunities galore. Wes and I were on the show recently as well on Tuesday, breaking down some games. So let's keep it moving to the rest of the diamond in terms of later in the day. And I think this is a fascinating handicap. The Cubs visiting the Reds. And yesterday, the Cubs clinched a playoff spot, their first since 2020. So COVID was the last time they were in the playoffs. And they partied. They partied. You had the champagne celebration, the beer flowing in the locker room, like baseball teams do. And we saw the Phillies do this the other night in LA, right? The Dodgers, they do it. And then the next day, everyone's betting the Dodgers. And that was the right side for 5 innings. They were up 4-0. Ohtani had a no-hitter. Then in the 6th, the Phillies get to that Dodgers bullpen. So the question is, was it good handicap, bad result? Or are we thinking too much with the partying and hangover component? Hunter Green's on the bump for Cincinnati. He obviously throws gas. Now, he's been lights out except for his last outing, but he had to go to Sacramento in that weird ballpark in the Athletics. So I wonder if you throw that out, he's been absolutely a gas can again against a Cubs team that might be hungover, might not be all the usual big bats in the lineup. Colin Ray is going for Chicago. So do we bet Green prop and not worry about the Reds' inconsistent offense? We'll ask our resident Reds fan, Wes.
Yeah, that's probably where I'm going to look here. By the way, the Reds for that angle you just mentioned, because the Cubs did get the clinch the playoff spot last night, and they really can't move up. They're not going to win the division. Milwaukee, essentially has won that division, so they're kind of where they are, where they're the number 1 wild card team, because they're 5 games ahead, by the way, of San Diego. So the Cubs are going to essentially be the 4 seed, if you will, in the NL playoffs. So can't really do much. So there is a possibility. We don't have lineups yet. Obviously, it's a later game today, that maybe a couple guys rest, that maybe they don't have a couple guys in the lineup today. And that's why I think you're seeing the move on the Reds, where this opened, I think as low as 125. And then after they clinched, that moved up at Bet Rivers now 143. So almost a 20-cent move. I think the way I am going to attack this, and this is on the move a little bit too, but I still think it's playable at 16.5, is Hunter Green over recorded outs. You mentioned last time that start in Sacramento. That's a weird ballpark where the mound is really lower. I think this is a good spot to bounce back. And also with the Reds, they keep trying to give me hope when I just kind of want to be done with it and not have any hope. They are 2 out of the wild card right now. With the Mets. Arizona, by the way, who would have thought Arizona, because they were an absolute seller at the deadline, and they're 1.5 back. San Francisco also 2 back. So the Reds only 500, but still a chance potentially to get that 3rd wild card spot if the Mets can kind of hit the skids a little bit. So Hunter Green, I think, is going to get a leash tonight. I think he's going to be able to get some distance. The 3 home starts he has made since returning from injury, against Philly, against Toronto, and the Mets, he's gone over 6 innings in each and given up just 2 earned runs in like 19 innings of work. So Hunter Green, to me, I think that this is a good bounce back. I don't want to necessarily lay the money line here, but I think you want to bet with the starting pitcher, maybe shorten the handicap a little bit. Instead of first 5, maybe like first 7, assuming he goes 6 innings here. Hunter Green, I think, gets some distance. So over recorded outs at 16.5.
All right, so we were thinking along the same lines. At Bet Rivers, that juice is minus 137. Um, Couple questions. If he gets a high pitch count because he's mowing them down with strikeouts, do you do a little bit on the over 6.5 Ks? Because obviously he could pitch great and only go 5 innings because he has like 12 strikeouts. Any concern there?
Not really. I mean, it sometimes it can work out that way, I guess. But I just think that he'll get some contact outs too. Like you just got to hope that he doesn't get like a lot of 3-2 counts, basically. But I think with the Cubs potentially having a weaker lineup and guys that are usually like pinch hitters that are not everyday starters, I think that certainly helps the outs. In terms of the strikeouts, it Bet Rivers right in line with the market, minus 155 is what I'm seeing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be a fair price at the over strikeout. So I thought maybe a little bit more value in the recorded outs.
All right, Wes, I'm going to tell you that was the game I was, or that was the play I was eyeing. I don't want to get involved with that Reds offense, so I'm going to play the Hunter Green over 16.5 outs as well at minus 137. So we'll double dip there, and I don't think it's us chasing what we should have done on Tuesday with Otani and what happened with the Dodgers, but I do think the right thing is to avoid the money line because Colin Ray, I mean, he probably celebrated, but he didn't party because he's got a pitch today. So I would imagine he could be locked in against a Reds lineup, like I mentioned, is inconsistent. So I do think the right way is the to isolate and fade the Cubs lineup, which might be missing some bats. Is that the
And you're
same thought process there?
It is, and you did mention Colin Ray. I do want to point this out because not a lot of people have recorded outs props up on Colin Ray, and there is a reason why. Because you don't know how long he's going to be. If they don't want to work bullpen. Clearly, you want to save bullpen arms now. When you've got a team clinched, you do want to kind of rest your bullpen a little bit more. It gives you the opportunity, I think, to do so. So you might see some of these back end starters like Colin Ray that if he gets in trouble a little bit early, they're not going to pull him. They're not going to be like, okay, 2 times through the order, we got to pull you. They might leave some of these guys out to die. And I'm talking about these teams that clinch, these back end starters that are essentially going to be middle relievers once you get into a playoff series that are not going to be in the regular starting rotation going forward in the divisional or the championship series or even onto the World Series. So that's why you don't see any Colin Ray props really being offered, not only at Bet Rivers, but anywhere, because there's a lot of variance of things that can happen with him.
All right, to your point. So in that game I mentioned after the Phillies celebrated, Christopher Sanchez went 7 innings, 102 pitches to give up 4 earned. So he wasn't exactly lights out, but they left him in. All right, we have some developments with the games going on. We have a couple dingers to mention. We'll start with the New York Mets with runners on the corners and 1 out. Brandon Nimmo goes yard, the upper deck, I believe. So it's now 5-1 Mets in the bottom of the third. So they broke that game open and have a comfortable lead, but although nothing is set in stone there. And big Christmas, they like to call them. Noel went yard for the Guardians, and then they had 2 on, but Skubal does get out of it. So it's 1-1 now, headed to the bottom of the fourth. Skubal's given up just 1 run through 4, but he has thrown 74 pitches, given up 7 base runners. So maybe still feeling the lingering effects of being, had to leave the last start with an injury. Keep an eye on the conversation going on in the comments section. Shane very fired up earlier, and he said, "Go Mets," and now Nemo with the exclamation mark. So he's fired up with the Mets wager, I would assume. And that's a reminder: get involved in the conversation. Let us know your thoughts. Any bets you're sweating out, what you like, what you dislike about the show, questions about games coming up later. Petey saying, "Afternoon, gents." Right back at you, Petey. So please let us know games you'd like feedback on during this live edition of Betting Weekly Hardball. Still 3-0 Rays. This game is in the top of the fourth now. Jay's going fairly quietly, only have 1 hit so far with 2 outs, top 4. The Red Sox back in the game. They added a run. So now we're through 3 in Beantown. A's lead 3-2 after Hamilton went yard for David Hamilton, that is, went yard for Boston. And my understanding, based on Twitter, it was a very weak home run. Nonetheless, it counts as a dinger. Seattle goes quietly in the top of the first. We're bottom 1. Kansas City at the dish with one out. So Nerfy looking good there. Let's keep it moving, Wes. That's an interesting breakdown, and it's fascinating as these teams celebrate how to assess the hangover component. It's not guaranteed money, but it's something to keep an eye on, at least part of the handicap. Yankees have not are not ready to celebrate because they're in the mix of a couple things going on with the wild card race, and like I mentioned earlier, four back of the Jays coming into today in Toronto, trailing 3-0. Yanks have Max Fried on the bump as the Yanks open up a series at Camden Yards against the Orioles. Povich pitching for Baltimore. And as you would imagine, Yankees pretty big favorites here, minus 210. The offense has woken up and it's 9 as your over under, but Max Fried's on the bump and he has settled down since a midseason lull. So Fried's certainly looking the part of the Yankees ace like he was earlier in the season. I would look to the Yanks run line here. I think this Orioles team is kind of left for dead. I have no faith in them. The Yankees somehow I do have faith in. What's your read on this game?
Yeah, and I think that they would like to get a little bit of length out of Max Fried tonight because the Yankees, even playing the hapless Twins, had to use their bullpen a little bit, and especially in that game, what were they up 10-1? I think at one
One.
point, and then the Twins made a run, and it's 10-9. So you don't get there if you laid the run line with the Yankees because they had to use a lot of those bullpen arms, and the bullpen can be inconsistent. It's actually not been bad for the Yankees over like the last 6 weeks. It's it's kind of maligned right there after the deadline when all these guys were getting just knocked around everywhere. And and now they've settled down a little bit, even though they give you some scaries from time to time. So I was looking at Max Fried props. They're priced obviously very high on the strikeouts and also the recorded outs. I know there's 18.5 juice the over. I would much rather lay over 17.5 and play the tag. I don't know if that's available at Bet Rivers right now. So that's something, by the way, too. I don't like to play bumps on these necessarily with pitcher props. When something moves from like 17.5 to 18.5, that's an immediate no-go for me because that's what I call like the key number. Like we talked about
Right.
key numbers
Right.
in football are 3 and 7, or key numbers on totals in baseball are 7 and 9. 17.5 to 18.5, that's obviously the difference because at the end of the inning, it's obviously easy to take a guy out and put another reliever in. So yeah, nothing for me at over 18.5. If that went down to 17.5, I'd have some interest in Max Fried because I do think he's going at probably 6 tonight.
Yeah, and the Orioles, interesting. They've been involved in 3 straight sweeps. So they just swept the White Sox in Chicago. They got swept themselves by the Blue Jays in Toronto, and that's coming off a sweep at home of the Pirates. So they sweep the 2 bad teams, the White Sox and Pirates, but then they get swept themselves by the Blue Jays, and even before that, the Padres, and then lose 2 of 3 at home to the Dodgers. So it kind of, I mean, look, everything's case by case, but it sounds like when they're facing good teams, they're getting outclassed. They haven't mailed it in. So that's something to be said. And I would imagine the Yanks coming to town brings out the Orioles focus, but I think the Yanks take care of business. This lineup has been pretty darn solid for the Yanks of late. Grisham has just been, Mickey Mantle reincarnated. He's been fantastic and coming up with big homers. I guess my apprehension a little bit, and I still may get there, is Kate Povich has been okay. He's been okay,
Mhm.
not been good. He's certainly been touched up, but this is not a gas can waiting to happen against this Yanks lineup.
No, not at all. And he's got some good strikeout stuff, and he's come back from his injury. And I think he's due a little bit of positive regression, actually. So that's why I'm not really wanting to lay the Yankees either on the run line or the money line here because the O's are still kind of a team that are long been out of it, but I still think try at least on a somewhat regular basis. Like some teams, it's like, oh, we try hard like maybe every few games. But they're a team that I do think tries to play hard. So I can understand why there's some support for the over here. But the only thing I'd be interested in is Fried over 17.5, laying a heavier tag if that became available.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. Check in on that while we're talking here. But the Yanks, have actually gone up at Bet Rivers to minus 220. So a little bit of steam there. Pitcher props. Yeah, you just have Fried at 18.5 plus money, but would you be interested in any of his strikeouts over 5.5 minus a buck 82.
Yeah, that's a lot, and I'm willing to lay heavy juice sometimes on these props. Like I'm not somebody that's totally against that, but
Right.
there are strikeouts. I think to me are a little bit tougher of a handicap, and I do get in the strikeout market. Don't get me wrong, but I think the recorded outs, you do have at least a little more margin for error because you're not just handicapping the starter, you're handicapping the bullpen. So that gives you a couple different ways to skin the cat there, right? You know, to
Mhm,
to, to
mhm.
go ahead and win that bet. With strikeouts, you're obviously dead to the starting pitcher, where it's like, okay, he's got to have his stuff, and get, the ump's got to maybe be a little generous, or he's got to get a lot of swing and misses. Uh, to me, maybe 182 a little bit high on
Yeah,
the VIG
I
on
would
the
agree.
over strikeouts. So I think I'm going to leave that one alone.
And unless you have an absolute flamethrower like maybe Hunter Green today or yesterday, Chris Sale, it's just really tough to project because Freed's range could be like 3 strikeouts or 7. So I agree with you. It's a little bit of a unreliable handicap. It's fun, but unless you get a guy who just throws absolute gas, like I did when the rookie pitcher for the Reds coming out of Wake Forest when he debuted, um, blanking on his name. He was just like an easy bet on the over with his strikeouts because that's just sort of his bread and butter, and they hadn't really faced him. We have some updates to get your way and games going on right now. The Nerfy Cash is in Kansas City, so they're on to the second, scoreless. Athletics have 2 on and 2 out in the third, still lead 3-2. So maybe they're trying to get built a little bit of a cushion like they had earlier in the game. Toronto in the fifth inning, it's still 3-0 Rays. Toronto trying to get on the board, get back into the game. Padres going quietly, which is nothing new for that San Diego offense that's been relatively quiet of late, although the big win yesterday. 5-1 Mets headed to the bottom of the fourth, and we have a pitcher's duel with Skubal and Bybee. Cleveland and Detroit 1-1. They're headed to the fifth inning. Anything jump out to you, Wes, in terms of a live wager? I thought about maybe the over in the Mets game, but then Nemo goes yard for a 3-run shot, so maybe not as enthusiastic about that opportunity. That live over under is now 10.5.
Yeah, it looks like Bybee at least has settled down a couple 15 pitch innings. Whereas he had, I think, 40 through the first 2 innings. So he's kind of settled down a little bit for the Guardians. Now he is going to get the top of the order here to start the sixth. Or start the fifth, I should say. 7.5 is the total, and that's where it closed. Mm, I'll leave it alone for now. It actually closed 7, but I could see maybe next time through the order for Bybee, that kind of would concern me a little bit that he just went through the bottom of the order to stop the fourth. So now in the bottom of the fifth, he's going to get those guys at the top end for the third time. So I would lean over there, but not going to do it. I'd rather, wait till it's like 6.5.
Game and a bet we threw out is just maybe a little bit of a flyer. Toronto, they're now plus 525 on the money line. Still trail 3-0, 1 out, top 5 as Toronto is batting. Any interest there that they think that those bats can wake up because they only have a single hit. That's it, and 1 walk.
Yeah, and they're at the bottom of the order right now, 7, 8, 9 due up for the Jays. Baz can get one of those. Man, he can get one of those innings that is a bad inning, but he hasn't had it right now. He's only put 3 base runners on through 4 and a third, so maybe he's got it
Yeah, we
going
got
today.
runner
But
on first now. Runner on
yeah,
first.
yeah. But I've seen him do that before, where he's kind of cruising through 3 or 4, and then all of a sudden you get like a 30 pitch fifth inning, and he's struggling to make it through the fifth. So now would be the time for the Blue Jays, but nothing for me.
Base hit for Varsho, single to right, and they did get a guy out. So we'll see. We'll see. So it's 1 out, top 5, runner on first. Could be fun. Could be fun to sprinkle a little action. The A's have scored now in the third. So it's now 4-2, runners on the corners, 2 outs. So we'll see if Bayo can get out of this jam and keep Boston in it. They're only in the top of the third. The Mariners scratch first. Runner on second still, batting in the second. Nobody out. So 1-0 Seattle. They lead and have a runner in scoring position. That live line is up from what were we saying, $1.40 or so. It's now 215 minus 215, and the fireworks could be coming like we saw offensively yesterday. That over-under is 9, juice to the over. Let's get to this rivalry game because I definitely think it's interesting. Dodgers hosting the Giants. Great pitching matchup, at least on paper. Yamamoto going for the Blue Crew. Logan Webb going for the Giants. He's no longer their ace. That's Justin Verlander. Has been absolutely lights out lately. But Webb has been interesting because, and I'm curious, Wes, because everybody has sort of a different theory with this. Webb has allowed 6 earned in each of his past 2 starts against the Dodgers. Okay. Also, that includes his most recent start overall was against LA. So how do you handicap that with the Dodgers being sizable favorites, $1.75 in terms of the recency? It's sort of like your golf handicap. Do you do current form, course history? How do
Mhm.
you implement sort of your handicap with Logan Webb and what has happened since facing the Dodgers each of the past 2 times, including a week ago?
I guess probably a little bit of both, Doug. And we have seen Logan Webb. I don't want to say total wear and tear here, but the guy's pitched 188 innings. He's usually a guy that goes pretty deep in the game that they give a leash. But rocked against the Dodgers, as you mentioned last time out on the 13th, only went 4 innings. Decent start against Arizona, but even at Colorado, he struggled to get through 5. Where he gave up 7 hits and 2 earned and walked 2. So he's a guy that you see a lot of, like when you look in the IP, the innings pitch column, and you see a lot of 6, you see a lot of 7 or 6 and a third, but he's had a few 4 and 5 inning starts here over the last couple months. So he has not been Mr. Reliable. He used to be the ultimate reliable pitcher prop bet when you look at earned runs under 2.5. Not necessarily anymore for Logan Webb. So I don't know if I want to go back in on any of the Logan Webb markets, at least right now from that standpoint. But so that would take me over to the Dodgers with Yamamoto on the mound for these guys who. They've obviously been giving him a lot of length. Now they've been skipping starts. He hasn't been going on like 5 days rest. He's been going on 6 days in some of these. But you look last time out against San Francisco, 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, 8 2/3 had that no hitter broken up at the end of the
That's
game where
right.
he had 10 strikeouts at Baltimore, and then against Arizona he had 10 strikeouts and went 7 innings. So what is the current price at Bet Rivers? I'm seeing a lot of juice over 6.5 on those strikeouts. It's probably going to be a very heavy tag considering considering the fact that he's got 10 strikeouts. Because sometimes you get a guy like that, and I want to fade. Where it's like, but I tried that actually once with Freddie Peralta last week and got burned in Texas. So sometimes a guy just has the good, but that means, of course, you're going to have to pay huge tax if you want to lay those over strikeouts. I think you could bet 7.5 at plus 102 if you want to go the alternate route. But if I looking to see because obviously for the Giants, there's no tomorrow. They're 2 back of the wild card. They're tied with the Reds, 76 and 76. So there is really no tomorrow. And it's like, are they in it or are they really just kind of in it? So I don't know really necessarily where they stand. I don't disagree necessarily with the under move from 8, I think, in the overnight to 7.5.
Okay. All right. One thing, friends in the research department, of the last 9 Dodgers games at night, 8 Nerfies have cashed. So good pitching, inconsistent hitting, or unreliable hitting has been the name of the game with the Dodgers at home in their last. Or is that at home? Let me double check that. It is, yes, at home. So last 9 home games at night. Um, we've talked a lot on this show, not just me, but the Bull and Massaro and everyone about the Dodgers bullpen and the shakiness there. And, obviously they delivered yesterday with the shutout, combined shutout with the starting. Any concern here with the Dodgers, or do you have a rule of thumb when you bet the Dodgers, you got to do first 5? How are you implementing sort of these recent collapses?
Well, usually I like to bet full game with the Dodgers because they get so many walk-offs. More so last year, I think than this year. But I don't really necessarily have a rule of thumb. I per se. I think it depends on the matchup a little bit. Certainly, they have a little bit of a flair for the dramatic, even though they haven't certainly lately, losing 2 or 3 to the Phils. And, what you mentioned, I think about that bullpen and the fact that, they've had plenty of injuries back there. Like the Dodgers, it wouldn't be the Dodgers if they didn't have injuries on their pitching staff, with
Right.
guys
Right.
that they thought that they were going to have with what you have Phillips hurt, you have Brock Stewart hurt, you have Michael Grove hurt, Brewster Gratterall, Gavin Stone, obviously a guy is somebody that they would have loved to have used this year. So you just they just have not been able to stay healthy, and that's why they acquire so many pitchers at the deadlines. But I still think that even though the Brewers are there, them and Philly are the team to beat in the National League, in my opinion. And Philadelphia can have some bullpen issues outside of Duran, of course, but yeah, a lot of these teams have got some issues at the bullpen. So I don't think it's as much of a glaring weakness for the Dodgers, because it's a glaring weakness, I think, for about everybody.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So that over-under's come down to 7.5. We'll keep an eye on that. The Toronto Blue Jays unable to do any damage. So we head to the bottom of the fifth. The Rays still lead 3-0. So there's even a bigger price if you want to grab the Blue Jays. That's plus 700. The Mets keeping an eye on those Dodgers, obviously, or vice versa. The Dodgers keeping an eye on this Mets Padres game. So the Dodgers lead the NL West by 2 games. San Diego trailing 5-1 now as they are in the top of the fifth. Cleveland and Detroit remain tied at 1. Bottom 5, though. So you got a two-way first 5. You got a free shot here with the Tigers have a runner on first and 1 out. Athletics 4-2 in the bottom of the third at Fenway. Boston does have the leadoff runner on first base. Nothing jumping out to me. Wes, chime in as we check in on the Brewers, who are just cruising along, still somehow flying under the radar. They've won 4 of 5, going for the sweep of the Angels. They've beat them 9-2 in each of the first 2 games of the series. Kikuchi on the bump for the Halos, but he's been all over the place. Some great outings, some really bad outings. And then Priester goes for Milwaukee, and all they do is win his starts. I'm looking at the run line here. It's very, very tempting. What about yourself?
Yeah, and also on the Kikuchi side, he's already passed his innings, or he's going to pass it certainly tonight for his career. So that's another thing that I think managers do look at, where how many innings do you want to use for a guy? So I wonder if this is going to be a long start or if it's going to be a short start, because like you said, he's been all over the place, had solid 6 against Seattle, and then only goes 2 against the A's the start before, and then a couple starts of 4, only goes 4 at Texas, and then goes 7 at Cincinnati before that. So I don't really know how to handicap Kikuchi at this point in terms of the length he's going to get. Meanwhile, Quinn Priester, not like a big strikeout guy, even though he's had 11 over his last 2 starts. But Priester is a guy that really is a true innings eater and gets a lot of ground ball outs, and, doesn't really get himself into a lot of jams, doesn't really walk a lot of guys either. So that's why Priester, I think, can give you a little bit of a difference. Nothing for me here would lean your way with the run line, because the Angels, obviously a dead team. And how many have they lost in a row? They were only like a few games under 500 last I looked at their record, and kind of forgot about them. Now I see them at 69 and 83. So going to be close on that win total. I think it was low 70s for the Angels. So all these games are going to matter down the stretch for them.
Yeah, 6 straight losses, including 4 straight against the run line. So let's add the Brewers run line. I just think this lineup is so strong. And like you mentioned, Kikuchi hitting that proverbial wall. I'll add it. Priester's been ridiculous. Like I said, all they do is win his starts. And I know Bull's been talking about it, but look, sometimes that's with his, Priester doing, but sometimes it's not. I just think the lineup just gives you a lot more ways to win than lose with the Brewers. So I'll do run line plus 100. So flat on Milwaukee, and we need the game to go our way. We need him to pitch well, which is tough. This Angels lineup, a lot of swing path and exit velo. They're feast or famine with the home run ball, but the Brewers have been managing them. And like you said, Halos have lost 6 straight. They're kind of checked out. Brewers going for the sweep and still trying to get that home field advantage throughout the NL playoffs, because the Phillies have been pretty impressive, and they're neck and neck, those 2 teams. So I'll do that as well. We got a game coming up in about half an hour as we wind down here on the show. A game only a mother could love. Rockies hosting the Marlins at Coors Field. Miami going for the sweep. 6 straight losses for the Rocks. 10 of their last 11 they've lost. Gordon on the bump against Alcantara. For me, it's Miami or pass. Not that I want to lay that kind of lumber with Alcantara. What about you?
Yeah, I would look maybe if you could find an under the Tanner Gordon under outs and it's 15.5. I think it was 16.5 in the overnight. Just the Rockies are just trying not to be like the worst team ever. And you know, I think that I don't see you getting any length out of starters necessarily here because you hadn't really gotten them all year with the Rockies. So if you could find Tanner Gordon under 15.5 outs at reasonable juice, I think that that's probably the way to go here.
So you don't want to lay the lumber with the Marlins?
No, not really, because this is a team that's kind of playing it out. Because I would have thought maybe that the Rockies would have taken 1 or 2 in this series because the Marlins know that they're out of it and they're just playing out the string. But that's the thing; you can't really bet a lot of Rockies games, and I haven't really. I've stayed away a little bit from
And
them.
you have.
Yeah, I've not felt good because it's like when you kind of dip your toe into the water, you know, you're gonna get stung by a jellyfish or something. So, you know, that's what you feel like you're getting when you bet the Rockies. So under for Tanner Gordon outs would be the only way I would look here.
Yeah, Miami hasn't packed it in. They've won 6 of 7. Like I said, going for the sweep at Coors Field. So checking in on some other games. They're through 5, 1-1, Tigers and Guardians. So you get your money back on any two-way first 5 bets. Padres go quietly in the top of the 5th. So Mets first 5 is going to cash. They lead 5-1. Blue Jays get nothing done, but the Rays trying to extend their lead. Bottom 5, runners on the corners, 1 out. Tampa leads 3-0 at home. Red Sox do have a runner in scoring position, but 2 outs and 2 strikes right now to Wong as the Athletics lead 4-2 at Fenway, and the Mariners still 1-0, although the Royals have 2 on and 2 out in the bottom half of the second. Wes, we got you for a prop. Anything else before we say goodbye?
That looks at least to be all for me. I'm trying to see if I could find something else, but just really couldn't find anything on the
Yeah,
night
it's a
slate. So
reduced card.
just the Hunter Green over recorded outs for me.
All right, we'll see. We'll have a good chuckle at some point if the Blue Jays somehow manage to come back and win this game, but it's not looking good as Tampa has runners in the corners now, 1 out, leading 3-0 in the 5th. Wes, you're back on Betting Weekly. Hardball tomorrow with Sarah as you look ahead to the weekend in the WNBA playoffs. We also have one game tomorrow night, a decisive Game 3 in Phoenix. The Mercury hosts the Liberty. I'm coming up top of the hour with Albert, and we're going to break down both decisive Game 3s tonight. We'll also give our 2 cents onto tomorrow's game as well, as that will occur before we're on a show next. But want to thank everyone. Wes, good to be with you. Good luck on the show tomorrow and your wagers tonight. And everyone behind the scene, including producers Chris and Alex, I'm Doug Kezirian. Best of luck with your wagers, and we'll see you back here next time.